Our MC has died over 100 times, which enabled him to unlock a skill from a very popular necromancer. This necromancy skill allows him to get all the experience and skills from his past life's body. And this concludes the intro. Please help us reach 69 likes and let's begin. A caravan of wagons is surrounded by people in a vast, open landscape with mountains in the distance. It is suddenly attacked by a horde of aggressive goblins. The people there stand with their swords drawn, ready to confront the goblins. A fierce battle commences as the goblins and people start clashing. A man holding a cigar watching the battle curses, stating the attacks are now regular. Unbeknownst to him, a group of goblins is eyeing him from behind, weapons ready. He then turns around and is startled. Suddenly, a warrior rushes past the man, taking him aback. As the goblin charges, the warrior slashes it open in half with his sword. He then smacks the other goblin with his shield, and he cuts through the other one. Another goblin charges in rage as the warrior defends with his shield. He then grabs the goblin's face with his bare hand, and he grabs that goblin's armand, tears it apart, causing the goblin to squeal. The old man stares at the warrior in action with awe. He is bewildered to see the warrior just rip apart the goblin's arm with his bare hands. With curiosity, the old man asks the warrior who he is. The warrior reveals that he liked games since he was young, which isn't a sin, but he has now ended up in that land with a caste system and poverty. There are also betrayals and murders, and the land is full of countless monsters. The warrior says his name is Dallin, but he disagrees, claiming it's not his real name. Dallin is sitting on the floor of the caravan, noting something down in a diary. A bald man walks in, reminding Dallin it's time to change shifts. Dallin shuts the diary closed, shuddering with cold. He asks the bald man if anything happened, and the bald man confirms it was quiet with no goblins in sight. As Dallin dresses, he questions if him patrolling inside the labyrinth city is the reason, admits it's getting colder, and asserts he can't get used to it, being from the southern countryside. The wheel of the caravan stumbles on a stone, causing the bald man to spit out the wine in imbalance. He claims he can see Palzion nearby, and Dallin suggests he have a good rest. Coughing and wiping the wine off around his mouth, the bald man praises Dallin for his good work. Dallin jumps off the caravan as people wish him good morning. As the many caravans move towards a massive city, Dallin says it's been 2 years since the tutorial. The starting point of this game is the labyrinth city Palzion. Dallin stares at the city, noting it's different from what he saw on the screen. The Palzion city is huge, with thousands of people in it, and it's also the only path to safely enter the underground labyrinth. There is no other way to avoid the monsters coming up the labyrinth and gather countless treasures buried underneath. And also based on the setup, there is a wish stone at its bottom that will grant the holder one thing they desire. And Dallin admits, the stone is the only way for him to return back to Earth. In order to find out if it actually exists, Dallin is planning to go down the labyrinth. The old man with a cigar from earlier calls out for Dallin from behind. Dallin greets the man, whose name is Bokma Galios, the owner of Galios Emporium. Bokma tells Dallin to address him casually, asserting they are comrades who have faced danger together. Dallin asks him if he has something to tell him, and Bokma tells Dallin he is quick-witted, noting he likes that about him. Bokma offers Dallin a position in his emporium as his personal mercenary. Hearing this offer, Dallin is startled as he had never seen such an event in that game before. Bokma says that he is certain Dallin will stand shoulder to shoulder with the countless superhumans in the labyrinth city. Dallin questions Bokma if he is trying to hire him before that happens, and Bokma agrees, and he asks Dallin on his decision. However, Dallin thanks Bokma for his offer and refuses it, to which Bokma says he knew that would happen. So, he withdraws a pouch of 15 shillings and offers it to Dallin as his commission fee. Puzzled, Dallin notes his commission is only 10 shillings, but Bokma tells him to consider the extra shillings an investment fee. He claims that he wants to solidify his relation with a prospective warrior like Dallin. He extends his hand and shakes it with Dallin, telling him he will see him later. The street inside the city is bustling with citizens. Dallin walks along in silence. However, his thoughts are still lingering on the offer made to him by Bokma. He is certain he has never witnessed such events before and begins to wonder if his actions can change the events of the game. He agrees that it was a tempting offer but asserts whatever he needs to do has already been predetermined. He makes his way along the streets and alleys. After walking for a while, he reaches an inn. Looking up at the building, he thinks he has come to the right place. He walks inside and notices a few people seated around, all busy talking. The people are laughing and drinking, while some are drinking their anger away. Scanning around, Dallin believes what he seeks was definitely there. He walks inside, looking here and there, searching. A little ahead, his attention is grabbed by something, and he gives a wide smile. He exclaims happily that he found what he was searching for. The system notifies him that he has discovered the pathetic soldier's corpse. The system tells him if he collects the corpse, he can inherit its abilities as well as part of the skills and items. The system asks him if he would like to collect the corpse, with options yes and no. He chooses yes and, extending his hand, collects the corpse. With a smile, he reveals that he has the ability of corpse collection and declares he will definitely reach the end of the game using it. Dallin always liked playing difficult games. He liked controllability, commonly referred to as physical, so he quickly got bored with easy games. But he claims the current game he is playing is tough. The main character is also weak, and the monsters are strong. Even the game worlds are collapsing into ruin. Every NPC ally Dallin had was either seduced by demons or plotting against him. Despite dying 100 times, Dallin remained determined to reach the game's end, pulling countless all-nighters and losing count of his deaths. Once the system had asked Dallin if he would like to purchase the selected items. He agreed to spend his money, wondering why the game required players to pay real money to see the ending. He might have deleted the game early if he hadn't invested so much time, so he continued spending real money on it. And currently, Dallin is sitting down in the inn, thinking he should have just deleted the game back then. He looks sideways at the lying corpse, and he notes it's lucky that other people can't see it. Inheritor DLC is a feature where a new character can inherit the abilities of the main character who has died in the previous playthrough. And for people like Dallin, who have died hundreds of times, it opens up the possibility of endless growth. Dallin pays for his drink and claims that there's only one flaw. You need to personally go to the location where you died earlier to collect the corpse. He walks to the corpse and, raising his arm, uses the corpse collection skill on his previous dead body. He then extracts the skills and attributes into his own current body. At once, his strength increases by 1 and proficiency by 1. He gives a confused look when the system informs him he has discovered a skill, Dahamon's Armored Combat. He grabs onto the new skill and is surprised to learn that the character had such a skill. With a smirk, he says it's nice. As his business there is finished, he turns away to leave the inn. But he is called by someone from behind. A man, pointing at Dallin, says he hasn't seen his face there before and asks why he is in the inn. He then asks Dallin if he knows the business ethics there. The man explains that Dallin needs to pay him the transfer tax and introduces himself as Maroon, the manager of the inn. Maroon tells Dallin he can safely eat and drink in his inn without worrying about getting stabbed. And at that moment, Dallin notices a dagger inside Maroon's cloak. Dallin recognizes the dagger and learns that Maroon was the one who killed him before. So he politely tells Maroon he has no money to pay him, angering him. Maroon stares at Dallin with a furious look on his face. The bald man tries to approach Dallin, but Maroon stops him, suggesting Dallin might be poor and without money. So he asks Dallin if he paid for the alcohol, and Dallin affirms. Maroon then tells Dallin to be on his way. Dallin doesn't linger and, turning away, bids Maroon goodbye. As he reaches for the door, smirking, Maroon withdraws his dagger. He runs towards Dallin, who has his back turned, the dagger raised to strike. However, Dallin is prepared as he knew Maroon would do that. The closed door swings open and Dallin flings Maroon towards the street. Maroon slams down with force. Dallin walks out and moves towards Maroon, slumped down. He tells Maroon that he won't fall twice for his tricks. Maroon curses in rage. Suddenly, Dallin is surrounded by many thugs, all with weapons. One of the thugs is shocked to see Dallin so large while another asks if Dallin is a savage from the north. Dallin realizes he is surrounded but remains cool. He gives a smile as he just received the new skill, calling it good timing. And he throws his shield and sword away and flexes his punch. With a confident smile, he tells the thugs to come at him. All the thugs lunge together at Dallin, calling him an arrogant bastard. The thug with the sword jumps at Dallin, telling him to die. Dallin quickly activates the Dahamon's armored combat skill. He draws back his hand and prepares an empowered punch with the skill. Then he punches the thug and sends him flying backwards with force. 2 other thugs attack him from the side. He dodges one of them while the other swings his wooden stake at him. The stake strikes his shoulder and snaps in half, shocking the thug. Dallin swiftly draws out another punch and hits the thug right in his chest. He gives a smile, as Maroon shouts at his thugs to defeat Dallin quickly, reminding them that he paid them. The thug with the sword runs towards Dallin. But Dallin raises his leg and gives a powerful kick right in that thug's face. 2 more thugs run at him, both of whom he punches. Another thug tries to stab Dallin with a dagger, which Dallin catches with his hand. The thug is horrified to see Dallin grab his dagger with his bare hand. Dallin then sends the thug flying away with a powerful punch. He curses in pain, noting he was trying to grab the thug's wrist, not the blade, and wonders if it's because the skill's proficiency is low. So he looks at his stats and sees the proficiency of the skill is only 1%. A bald man from behind Dallin asks him what he has done. He warns Dallin that it's illegal to commit assault in broad daylight, even if he is a mercenary. Seeing the man threaten him, Dallin pulls out his axe. As the man continues warning Dallin, Dallin throws the axe towards the man. The man is horrified as the axe lodges itself in the doorframe nearby. Dallin apologizes to the man, claiming his hand slipped by mistake. He pulls out the axe and questions the scared-looking man about what he was saying. Having defeated the inn manager Maroon, Dallin flexes the big sack of shillings he took from him, a smile on his face. With such money, he decides to stay in a nicer inn. So he walks towards a better inn where the front desk clerk welcomes him. The clerk asks Dallin how long he plans to stay and mentions discounts based on mercenary rank. Dallin says he will stay for a week and, showing his badge, declares he is a silver plate mercenary. The clerk informs Dallin that breakfast and lunch are free based on his rank, but dinner must be purchased for 7 shillings. Dallin's face falls upon hearing the price as it's expensive, but he pays it. After paying, he goes to his room and removes his armor and weapons. He gazes out the window and declares it's the real beginning, emphasizing that his survival is crucial in beating the game. He believes he should get stronger to stop the world's ruin, and for that, he needs money and experience points, EXP. But he realizes that with his current gear, he can't do much. He needs money to get better equipment and needs to level up to use the inheritor ability. Remembering his countless plays and deaths, he knows his previous characters' corpses are scattered across the continent. He hopes to collect all of them and become stronger than ever. He knows time is tight, so he needs to prepare as quickly as possible. He seeks to receive a special commission where he can earn money and collect the corpses at the same time. For that, he decides to meet the owner of the crow's nest the next day. Meanwhile, somewhere, a woman is looking at a note, speaking out Dallin's name. She notes that he is a soldier from the north. The next day, the inn's clerk wishes Dallin a safe trip. Dallin is ready to be on his way. He walks along the isolated alley. After walking for a while, he stares ahead, thinking he has arrived. In front of him is a small, old-looking house. He walks in, asking if anyone is there. But once he looks around, he finds it empty. He notes that despite the door being open, the owner isn't there. Looking at a nearby door, he wonders whether he is an unwelcomed guest. Behind that door, a woman armed with a crossbow awaits, prompting Dallin to consider clearing up the misunderstanding. So he knocks on the wall, creating a certain rhythm. Hearing this, the woman realizes the stranger isn't a threat and sighs in relief, and she shouts out that she has said many times not to disturb her outside of business hours. But she stops mid-sentence upon noticing Dallin and says she hasn't seen him before. Smiling, Dallin suggests to the woman to expand her consumer base to boost business, remarking on the place's potential for commerce, startling her. But she gives a smile and asserts herself quite capable, saying Dallin speaks well for someone from the north. She then teases Dallin and calls him a savage, asking if he understands. Dallin says he does. Dallin mentions that he immigrated when he was 2. He declares he has been civilized and tells the woman she seems to struggle with foreign languages. He says it's disappointing, causing the woman to burst out laughing. She then apologizes, saying she didn't expect to be teased in such a gentlemanly way. Turning around, she tells Dallin to follow her. Dallin notices the large crossbow she holds behind her back. Feeling relieved, he contemplates that he nearly got shot. Inside, the woman hands tea to Dallin and suggests they should introduce themselves. She introduces herself as Sienna, currently working as a simple informant for the Crow's Nest. Dallin then introduces himself and says he came there looking to accept some commissions. Sienna says he can accept the commissions but offers to introduce him to the place first. Dallin tells Sienna that Buckman advised him to accept alcohol if offered but decline tea, gesturing towards the tea she gave him. Sienna claims Buckman speaks falsehoods and asks Dallin if he saved his life or something. She explains that Dallin knocking on the door with the code known only to her real friends made her cautious, prompting her to size him up. She asks him if he really seeks a commission, to which Dallin nods. Sienna asserts that she doesn't know Dallin and points out that it's their first meeting, so she says she will offer Dallin trivial commissions that won't have much impact on her business if he fails them. Dallin says that's fine, repeating it's their first meeting. Sienna suppresses a laugh, expressing her curiosity to witness Dallin's skills after hearing he tore goblins apart with his bare hands. A while later, Dallin walks out of the crow's nest, looking down at a document. He looks annoyed as he says Sienna was like a fox with all her "I don't know you" nonsense. He also notices that she knew who he was from the moment he arrived at Palzion. He goes on his way, reaching Low Street, the Bronze Territory outskirts after a while. The commission he received is about a missing person in Low Street. There have been lots of disappearances for a month straight in the same place at the entrance to Low Street. The disappearances occur sometimes every 3 or 5 days, and most are women or children who were alone. Recently, the person to go missing was a young man. Dallin walks into the tunnel where the disappearance had taken place. Suddenly, he hears a strange noise and sees the shadow of a creature approaching him. He is taken aback as he realizes the monster in front of him is the one that ate him previously. The monster approaches Dallin, growling hungrily. The system informs Dallin that the monster has eaten a hunter before whom he can inherit by defeating the monster. The monster snarls, baring its teeth, its eyes locked on Dallin. With a smile, Dallin expresses surprise that he found the monster so quickly. Feeling lucky, the system notifies him that the monster has consumed a hunter, which he can absorb by defeating it. Dallin believes the monster is either a low-path demi-monster or a low-path boss-grade monster. He remembers that the monster was originally the size of an ogre who could easily crush buildings. The monster licks its lips, growling that he is hungry and small ones don't fill his stomach. Dallin notes that the current monster is still in an unfinished form, thinking it might be because it's early in the game. He says it's even better. With a smile, he remarks he can nip the monster in the bud. Suddenly, the monster lunges at Dallin, roaring and opening its fanged mouth. Dallin braces for the impact, raising his shield in front of him. He then swiftly steps backward, dodging as the monster swipes its sharp claws at him. Applying force in his leg, he propels it forward, aiming a kick at the monster. His kick strikes the monster right in its stomach, causing it to yell out loud. The monster then gets sent backwards, slamming into the wall. It struggles to stand up, still grumbling. The right side of its head is smashed in as it groans in pain, but the missing chunk starts regenerating again. Dallin notices the regeneration speed of the monster and says it's a load of crap. The monster growls and yet again charges at Dallin. It extends its clawed arms and lunges at him. Dallin reacts quickly and slices his sword at the monster's stomach. The monster yelps loud in pain while Dallin curses that he didn't manage to cut deep. The monster gets on its knees, blood gushing out from the cut on its stomach. Dallin raises his sword to finish the monster. But the monster cries out to Dallin to stop and says he is a human being. Dallin is taken aback hearing this and asks the monster if he has come to his senses. The monster nods, saying he is fine. The monster says he didn't do anything because he wanted to. He shouts out that he didn't like eating people and says those people planted a beast inside him. Dallin asks what he means by those people. The monster says he doesn't know who they are either and says they had black robes and masks on. He explains that they used weird potions and spells to turn him into a monster, and Dallin asks about the looks of the masks. The monster thinks for a moment and says the mask had a plain surface with a huge mouth painted on it. Dallin thinks that those people will become a problem for him in the future and decides to be prepared for them as well. Meanwhile, the monster is horrified that he ate people. Dallin tries to reassure him that it's not his fault. He blames those people who turned him into a monster for his actions. And he promises to make those people disappear as the monster begins to sob in regret. He thanks Dallin as Dallin puts the sword back in the sheath. He continues sobbing, his head in his hands, and claims those people made him eat his daughter. He says they forced his mouth open and threw in parts of his daughter's body. As he recalls this event, his rage gets the better of him and he turns back into the savage and charges at Dallin from behind. Dallin, aware of the incoming attack, grabs his sword, and turning around, he chops off the monster's head with a single swipe of his sword. The monster's head flies far away and lands. The system notifies Dallin he has eliminated the subject. It also notifies Dallin he has discovered the corpse of a hunter eaten by the monster and asks if he wants to retrieve it. Dallin, looking down at the dead body of the monster, curses in pity. After completing the mission, Dallin returns to the crow's nest, causing Sienna to ask him why he didn't return to the inn. Dallin removes the large bag tied to his shoulder and slams it down on the table. He tells Sienna that he got the wanted man. Sienna is speechless at first and then agrees that the talk about Dallin tearing a goblin to pieces wasn't nonsense after all. She then praises Dallin and hands him 15 shillings. She tells him though he completed the job faster than expected, she won't pay him more. Dallin says 15 shillings are more than enough to last him a week. He then withdraws another bag and puts it down, causing Sienna to ask what's that. Dallin says that those are the victim's belongings. Sienna asks Dallin what to do with them, and he directs her to give the items to the victims' families or friends. But Sienna says she doesn't take others' money and tells Dallin to keep it. Looking pleased, Dallin thanks her, and he turns around, saying he will see Sienna later as she reminds him to come during business hours. Dallin says he will think about it if she offers him a drink instead of tea. Sienna gives a smile at Dallin's words. But she is puzzled by his actions despite being a mercenary, because she doesn't find Dallin to be a man swayed by a sense of justice. However, she deems him an interesting mercenary, and she is sure Dallin is capable and believes there's no harm in working with him. Back at the inn, Dallin is noting down his encounter with the demi-monster during the day. He then summons his stats window and checks his stats. He notices they have increased a little, and he concludes he should retrieve more corpses to get stronger and stop the future doomsday scenario that is nearing. In the future, a coven of witches will burn down a town, secret cultists will take over the city, and even vampires will invade the empire. And he remembers the evil god as well. He recalls the description of the masks given by the monster earlier. He closes his diary and thinks he should do what he can for now. He realizes those in masks are Paulshan's secret cult society whom he can't let be or they will grow in threat. So before they can give any trouble, Dallin plans to tear them apart from within. At the crow's nest, the bartender, noticing something, turns his head. He notices Dallin sitting on the stool, who orders a glass of meloned Highlander. The bartender provides Dallin with his requested drink. At that moment, Sienna walks in, reminding Dallin he's supposed to come during business hours. Dallin asserts that with a bartender and a customer present, it's already business hours, prompting Sienna's disapproval. Dallin asks her who he has to kill today, and Sienna says he doesn't need to. She tells Dallin to follow her, noting she needs to talk to him about something important. Dallin asks what type of talk it is. Walking through the other door, Sienna says a specific job has come up. Turning her head, she smirks that it's for the Low Path Hunter. Dallin asks her what she means by the Low Path Hunter. Sienna pours tea for Dallin and tells him Low Path Hunter is his nickname. She explains that he has been running around Low Path and the alleys catching wanted people. and she remarks that the nickname suits Dallin, having spent the entire last week on jobs considered dirty and dangerous by others. Dallin says that there must be many other bounty hunters beside him, and he asks her about the specific job she mentioned. Sienna pulls out a file and says it's the bounty for him. Dallin checks out the details and asks about the magic tower mentioned there. Sienna explains that the Elgaya's magic tower in the fine silver zone has found him. She says that she is not speaking for all of Elgaya's but for one of the older mages. Dallin questions how the magic tower knew his name after just a week, and Sienna suggests a client might have recommended him. He suggests his name reached the magic tower because his client must have been high-ranking, asking Sienna if she had met someone of such stature. Sienna thinks for a moment and says someone comes to her mind. She thinks it must be the Bronze Guard's silent company commander, and Dallin agrees he's a big shot. He believes that man could have a connection to the magic tower and hopes to have him as his ally if he could. And then he asks Sienna about the details of the job. That night, Dallin walks out to embark on the new commission. The commission involves finding the Elder Mage's missing disciple, the only one who disappeared in the sewers. The reward will be 1 florin if Dallin finds a trace of the disciple, and it will be doubled if he brings him back alive. Dallin knows mages cherish their disciples and hopes success will earn him the magic tower's gratitude. And he hopes it might pay off in the future, and he also remembers Sienna saying she would send him a skilled guide. A while later, someone appears before Dallin asking if he is the low-path hunter. It's a small girl who introduces herself as Penny and claims she is the guide for Dallin for his sewers job. Dallin is taken aback as he notices his guide is just a child. As both of them enter the sewers, Penny says along with the cleaner of sewers, she is also responsible for the city's foundation. Dallin tells Penny that she seems to be attached to her job, and she agrees with pride. Dallin warns Penny about the dangers in the sewers, mentioning devil worshippers and criminals, but Penny believes hard work pays off despite the risks. Dallin notes that Penny is really positive. He asks her how long she has worked at her job. Penny says for 3 years. They keep walking along the sewers, and a while later, Penny analyzes the map, saying the mark on the map is where they are. Dallin asks if that's where the disciple went missing, and Penny agrees. As the one missing is from the Elgaya's magic tower where they are earth mages, Dallin believes the underground sewers would be really advantageous to them. Also, as the missing person was a direct disciple of the Elder, Dallin assumes he must be highly skilled. Since someone managed to kidnap such a skilled person, Dallin guesses who the kidnapper might be. That person is one of the biggest pains in the asses among the cultists who, when fully developed, will be called the one-man army. Dallin claims that the kidnapper is still far away from completion and vows to defeat him for the sake of the future. At that moment, Dallin notices a glow coming off the water below. He and Penny analyze the thing closer and find out it's a necklace given to each student of the magic tower. Dallin grabs the necklace from the water and sees the unlit crystal inside, indicating the stored spells are exhausted. So he takes it as a sign that this location was the mage's final destination. Looking suspicious, he stares ahead and noticing something asks Penny how good she is at fighting. Penny says that she is good enough to defend herself as Dallin reaching out for his sword says that's good. He then swiftly draws out his sword. Extending the torch ahead, he tells Penny to stand back. Suddenly from the other side, a group of creatures walk out, their structure same as humans. Dallin recognizes those creatures as frogmen. Dallin claims that they are lowest-grade monsters but have high intelligence and are tricky to handle. Penny breathes out in relief and Dallin thinks they won't have anything to worry about. The frogmen immediately charge at Dallin, who extends his sword ready to act. His eyes blazing, Dallin raises his sword and chops the first frogman in half. The other 2 frogmen come at him from the other side. He once again raises his sword and cuts through both of them at once. Suddenly, Penny gives a horrified look and pointing somewhere warns Dallin to look there. Dallin looks sideways and sees a bunch of frogmen walking out. Dallin jokingly claims that it might not be an army but they have got a whole company of frogmen. He smirks and states it doesn't matter, charging at them, saying he will wipe out every single one of them. Stepping ahead, Penny looks at the sight in thrill. All around her, she sees the dead bodies of frogmen. Dallin, splattered in blood, asks Penny if she is all right, and she affirms. She claims that she has been part of the cleaning crew for long, so she can deal with 2 frogmen. Dallin suddenly warns Penny to not get closer, puzzling her. Out of nowhere, a spear comes hurling towards them which Dallin blocks with the sword. But the powerful impact smacks the sword out of his hand and he withdraws the axe quickly. And he hurls the axe towards the opening ahead. The axe manages to strike a frogman hiding on the other side of the opening. Surprised, Penny asks Dallin how he knew the frogman was still around. He then activates the night vision skill and through the dark sees his axe struck one frogman dead while another one is running away. And he decides to go after that fleeing frogman to locate his lair. Penny, in awe, says Dallin is amazing. Dallin tells her to follow him and not linger. A while later they reach a dead end. Penny points to someone sitting at the other end and Dallin says it's the person they are looking for. Sitting by a throne-like structure is a mage who Dallin says is a pagan mage who was kicked out of the magic tower. His name is Derek Valentino, who asks Dallin who he is and if he touched his experimental specimen. Dallin mentions Derek once gave him an unforgettable death and questions if he's not allowed to dispatch monsters that interrupt his stroll. Derek says that it's strange and that normal people don't usually stroll deep in the sewers. And he slams the staff on the ground and says Dallin didn't even chase the frogman that ran away to his lair. Suddenly, from the depths of the water, more frogmen start emerging. Seeing this, Penny gives a horrified look. Within seconds, a huge herd of frogmen appear all in formation. Penny is worried that the frogmen might invade the city as she eyes Dallin with hope. She believes Dallin will be able to kill the frogmen no matter how many their number is. Derek commands the frogmen to rip Dallin and Penny to shreds. Following the command, all the frogmen charge forwards. His sword ready, Dallin tells Penny to wait there. He says he will finish the job quickly, looking serious. He knows that if the caster dies, the frogmen will disperse and decides there's only one answer this. Then he swings his sword, slaying the frogmen ahead. He plans to break through the middle of the frogmen and aim to kill the caster. He applies pressure to his feet and propels himself forward, cutting through the frogmen like butter. A frogman lunges at Dallin, its mouth wide open. He slashes its mouth clean. More frogmen surround him. He punches them away. He turns sideways, his eyes focused, and slices a frogman in half. Suddenly, half a dozen frogmen lunge at Dallin together. But he manages to cut through them all easily. However, his sword snaps in two. Even his shield begins to shatter. Now weaponless, Dallin stands before more than a dozen frogmen all springing towards him. He shouts in rage and curses, saying he will finish it and activates Dahamon's armored combat skill. He punches through the frogmen, crushing their skulls and any parts he contacts with. He doesn't stop, and like a madman smashes the frogmen like ants. Seeing this, Derek is bewildered. He questions where such a monster like Dallin came from as he sees him in action. Dallin leaps off his feet and holding the axe jumps at Derek. Derek yells out in fear as a beam bright like crackling with energy descends down. The beam strikes on Derek. Derek gasps, his mouth wide open, struggling to breathe. Dallin stares ahead as Derek dies and the system notifies he has discovered the corpse of a mercenary who was subjected to a pagan experiment. He recalls that previously, Derek had used him to absorb someone who had complete dragon blood into his body. As he remembers the scene, he finds it was horrifying. The system then asks Dallin if he wants to collect the corpse. He agrees and uses the corpse collection skill. Instantly, his stats all increase. He even discovers a new skill, dragon blood regeneration. Suddenly, his reaction changes like he just got an electrical shock as his body surrounds with golden light crackling with electricity. The frogmen behind Dallin witness a blinding light emitting all around him. Their looks shift to shock as even Penny looks on in awe. Still emitting the energy, Dallin addresses the frogs. And turning his head at them with a smirk, he asks them if they are done. Dallin, emitting an aura of bright light, asks the frogmen if they are done. The frogmen give intimidated looks. Suddenly, they turn around and start fleeing. Dallin gives a sigh of relief. Penny comes running towards him, asking if he is all right, and he reminds her he told her to stay back. Penny asks if the guy from earlier was a person, causing Dallin to ask what she means. She tells Dallin that not everyone is from the north like him, noting how he killed a dozen frogmen barehanded, and his injuries healed on their own. Dallin asks Penny what she thinks about it, causing her to startle and ask why he's asking her that. He notes that there isn't anyone else to ask, and Penny admits that's true. Nervously, she says that though it's their first meeting, Dallin is different from others she's met before. She tells Dallin she is sure he will accomplish everything. She breaks into a smile and says it doesn't matter if Dallin is not human, but before she can continue, Dallin asks her to hold on. Realizing she is mistaken, he clarifies he is not talking about her thoughts on him. He asks her where she thinks the kidnapper has hidden the hostages, causing her face to redden in embarrassment. She reminds him that if he doesn't share what he is thinking, she can't understand. Meanwhile, in a chamber somewhere, for people in hoods and masks are gathered. One of them says he summoned the urgent meeting because Derek has died. The other members are shocked as the woman asks how he died. She notes that Derek was the last one to be admitted and isn't someone who can be easily killed with his army of 500 frogmen. The man says half of the frogmen are dead. He explains that the rest fled when Derek died, and another man asks if the guards were behind it. Another questions if it was the hooligans from the Silent Company, which the man denies. He states that a single person defeated Derek, and the woman, taken aback, asks if a lone mage from the Fine Silver Zone did it. She criticizes Derek for needlessly kidnapping the Elder's direct apprentice when another person enters and declares Felver Valentino's innocence. The four of them turn towards the new arrival, greeting him as the Grand Apostle. The Grand Apostle takes his throne-like seat and explains he called them to assure them not to fear a single mercenary. One follower, in disbelief, asks if a single mercenary really killed a monster army by himself, causing the apostle to shout him down. He declares they will bring forward the date of their grand plan, and despite Derek's death, their plan won't change. He commands them to release the funds and buy the ingredients for the secret drugs and recruit those who can wield weapons. He clenches his fist, asserting that they will pressure using the power of the economy if necessary and claims this is why they increased their power. He stands up, extending his arms, declaring that nothing has changed and proclaiming that the order of evil will begin with them, foreseeing the imminent collapse of the seven walls. He chants, "It's for the day when the seven walls fall." At the Elgaya's magic tower, Bronze Branch. 33. The clock ticks onward, and Dallin is slumped on a sofa, thinking it's great to be back after 2 years. He recalls Sienna had told him the person who commissioned him wanted to see him and give him the compensation personally, so he is there. He thinks there's nothing wrong with receiving an additional reward. He summons his status window and checks out his stats. He inspects the new skill, Dragon Blood Regeneration, which is one of the many traits that come from dragon blood, but it consumes a lot of stamina. When Dallin used it in the sewer, he slept a whole day upon returning. And he realizes it will be impossible to use it continuously in a fight. At that moment, a man with a beard walks in, apologizing for keeping his guest waiting. He is Felver Valentino, the elder mage of the magic tower, who is waves at Dallin. Valentino offers to make a cup of tea, to which Dallin agrees. With a laugh, Valentino mentions there's a reason people avoid business trips, while Dallin smells something. Surprised, he sees that it's a cup of coffee. Valentino remarks that despite Dallin's appearance, no one would think he prefers tea. He offers to send a bag of beans to the crow's nest, and Dallin thanks him. He then introduces himself as the elder mage of Elgaya's magic tower and grandmaster of the arts. He adds that he is Tommy's teacher, the one Dallin saved, as Dallin introduces himself and asks after Tommy's well-being. Valentino explains that thanks to Dallin, Tommy is fine but currently on probation. Dallin inquires about the probation and why Tommy ventured into the sewers. Valentino reveals that Tommy was tracking his first apprentice's trail, unaware it was a ploy by Derek. He thanks Dallin, amazed that a mere silver plate mercenary single-handedly defeated the Frogman army. Dallin remarks that one can't judge people solely by their identification plates, a sentiment Valentino agrees with. Valentino lays down a pouch containing 100 silver coins as compensation, equivalent to 1 gold coin. Additionally, he presents a small handbag with a regeneration potion inside, suggesting Dallin might need it as a warrior. But then he suggests Dallin might not need it, hinting at the dragon blood in him, which startles Dallin. Valentino quickly reassures Dallin, clarifying he's not threatening him, and makes him an offer. Curious, Dallin asks what the offer entails. Valentino gives Dallin the opportunity to choose a different reward. As Dallin departs, Valentino's comment about his reward choice echoes in his mind, hoping it will be better than the potion. Meanwhile, he is surprised that Valentino easily recognized the dragon blood, feeling alarmed at how close he came to attacking him. Reflecting on his broken axe, Dallin feels relieved he doesn't have a new one. Earlier, in the sewers, Penny had asked how long he had used the axe before it snapped in half. Dallin had promised to buy a new one, but Penny had insisted he wouldn't have enough money, and she had suggested him to visiting her uncle, a blacksmith. Now standing outside the magic tower, Dallin wonders if he should take up Penny's suggestion for a discount. Arriving at Forge Street in the Bronze Territory, Dallin recalls Penny mentioning the blacksmith shop was somewhere around. Suddenly, he hears someone screaming, and an old man crashes nearby ahead of him. Two thugs, one holding Penny hostage and another with a raised leg, having just kicked the old man, demands to know if he's joking with them. The old man, Penny's uncle, pleads with the thugs to release Penny. Dallin is in shock as realizes who the man is. Dallin witnesses Penny's uncle being bullied by two thugs. The thug tells the old man he needs to pay back the interest. With a smirk, he suggests the old man give up his niece, Penny, if he doesn't have the money, claiming the store owner might forget his debt. The old man looks pissed off at such comments and curses at the thug. Meanwhile, Dallin is taken aback to find the old man there. The old man, Leverin Ahakim, is known as the refiner of Mithril. He is supposed to endlessly develop and create humanity's greatest weapons until the second half of the game. He is also an important NPC blacksmith, essential for the strategy in the second half of the game. The thug pulls out a blade and tells the blacksmith to pay with his hands, noting it's 1 gold coin per hand. At that moment, Dallin walks ahead and grabs onto the thug's arm holding the knife, who tells him to let go. Dallin asks the thug if the blacksmith's hand is worth 1 gold coin. He asks how much his hand costs. Suddenly, a loud scream of terror fills the air. Back inside, the blacksmith offers a mug of beer to Dallin and thanks him for saving him and Penny. He then asks Dallin if he needs a new weapon, and Dallin affirms. But the blacksmith says he can't make a new weapon at the moment because he is in debt to the shop. Dallin asks him what his debt has to do with making weapons. The blacksmith bellows in anger that all of his tools were confiscated by the thugs as he curses them. He reveals that the shop owner offered him a job in his studio for 5 years to clear his debt. He also says that selling his own store and working for others isn't suitable, as once he pays his debt, he will have nowhere to go. Dallin asks him if he kept holding on to his position, causing the thugs to come and threaten him. The blacksmith curses those thugs again in anger. He says that it was the store owner's goal from the beginning. Dallin asks the blacksmith how much, puzzling him. Dallin then offers to repay the debt for him. Saying so, Dallin turns to leave, while the blacksmith reminds him that the amount he owes can't be handled by a single person. It's 26 florins. But Dallin waves his hand and says he will find a method to repay the money. In exchange, he asks the blacksmith to make him some weapons, and he picks an axe, telling the blacksmith to consider it a deposit. With that, he leaves the store, thanking the blacksmith for the beer, leaving him speechless. Still shocked, the blacksmith asks Penny who that man is. Penny gives a smile and says that Dallin is an incredible person. At Galio's Emporium Bronze Branch, Bokma Galios, owner of Galio's Emporium, asks Dallin what he just said. Dallin repeats and requests Bokma Galios to lend him some money, a handful of gold coins. Bokma Galios is taken aback and speechless at such a request. A while later, Dallin walks away holding a sack of coins, noting he got it for a commission. Moments before, back in Bokma Galios' office, Dallin had told him he needed the gold to pay off some debt of a member of his family. He explained that it's a debt from a business which kept inflating until it became several dozen times what it was. And he asked Bokma Galios if he would lend him money or not. Bokma Galios had asked Dallin about the person his relative had a debt to. Dallin had said the debt was owed to the Telia shop, and hearing this, Bokma Galios's expression had changed. He had agreed to lend the money, and Dallin, noticing Bokma's changed expression, had supposed he might be connected to the case as well. He had asked Bokma what he wanted him to do. Bokma had explained that the Telia shop is an organization with a dirty and sketchy background. He had told Dallin to meet him the next day at the same time, saying he has a commission for him. The Telia shop is tied to an organization created illegally by the Apostles of Retrograde, a cult group dominating commercial power in the Bronze territory, making it a key hub for their activities. Dallin had plans to track down their operations and dismantle them, but now realizes they've entangled themselves with him. He wants to charge into the store but knows confronting a legally established merchant association openly isn't wise. So, he decides first to extricate the blacksmith, Leverin, from trouble. Suddenly, Dallin notices commotion nearby. It's happening right in front of Leverin's smithy, and Dallin suspects the Telia bastards are making their move. Without hesitation, he sprints towards the scene. A group of thugs has cornered Leverin and his niece. The thug leader orders Leverin to come with them obediently. However, Leverin shouts defiantly that he won't go and raises his hammer in defense. The thug mocks Leverin, joking about his fear of the hammer. Behind the thug, more than a dozen people stand ready. The thug confidently taunts Leverin, stating he won't last even if he fights with his hammer. He laughs loudly, enjoying Leverin's anger. The thug commands his gang to capture Leverin and Penny. Suddenly, an axe swings out of nowhere and chops off the thug's extended right hand. He screams in agony as blood spurts out. In a flash, Dallin grabs another thug by the head. Effortlessly, he snaps the thug's neck backwards. Dallin declares he's made his decision. With a smirk, he says he'll consider each of the thug's hands as worth 1 silver coin. Dallin leaps forward. He activates the Dahamon's armored combat skill, empowering his punch. His punch strikes the bald thug on his cheek, another thug's stomach, and the third thug near his neck. Just like this, in a quick flash of time, he beats the crap out of a number of thugs at once. 2 more thugs spring at Dallin from behind, swords raised above them. Swiftly, Dallin pushes his hands back and strikes those thugs right in their guts. More thugs run towards Dallin as the leader tells them not to be afraid since Dallin doesn't have a weapon. Dallin gives a smirk as he moves as fast as lightning. The blacksmith Leverin and his niece Penny both give shocked looks. Before them, all of the thugs lay sprawled on the ground, all beaten up. A thug with broken teeth growls at Dallin, calling him a monster. Dallin kicks that thug, pushing him down into the ground. He crouches down and beats him up. Leverin asks Dallin who he is. Dallin walks near him and hands the sack of 26 gold coins to him. Taken aback, Leverin asks Dallin why he is going so far to help him. Dallin gives a wink and says there's nothing to lose getting close to a blacksmith, asking him to make him some weapons. He then looks down at the leader of the thugs and, grabbing him up, asks why he is playing dead. He questions the thug about his actions and what his higher-ups really want. But the thug forces a smile and states he won't speak obediently. Annoyed, Dallin gives a powerful punch to the thug. He warns him it's his last chance and asks him what the bastards in the store told him. The thug speaks and says his higher-ups told him to drag all of them, and Dallin cuts him off, asking who. The thug says they are supposed to drag or kill the craftsmen, tradespeople, and anyone related to business. Dallin asks the thug who gave him those orders. Suddenly, the left hand of the thug starts transforming as he groans in pain. His nails turn into claws, hair sprouts on his arm, and he says the owner of Telia's shop ordered him. He laughs as his teeth are replaced with fangs. Startled, Dallin drops the thug quickly. The thug's body has transformed into a monster, giving a creepy smile. Dallin raises his axe and chops off the head of the monster in one swing. Leverin, witnessing the thug's transformation, gasps in horror as Dallin says it was a demi-monster. Dallin realizes that the bad guys can already use demi-monsterification in real life. He admits they are moving really fast, cursing in annoyance. He tells Leverin to lock the doors and stay indoors for a few days, prompting Leverin to ask where he is going. Dallin recalls what Bokma Galios had said about the Telia shop and says he will go to Galios' Emporium. He says he will come back for the weapons when he finishes the issues, leaving Levern speechless. Meanwhile, back at his house, Bokma Galios is wondering about the coincidence that Dallin brought up the Telia shop. He admits the people in Telia shop were suspicious and heard they've been buying goods in large quantities. He believes they must be preparing for something big, not just business. He thinks back to when Dallin had asked him what he wanted him to do for him. He decides to think of the details when Dallin comes later. Taking a swig of his coffee, he appreciates it as the best thing in the morning. Suddenly, Dallin comes in, jumping through the window, causing Bokma Galios to spill his coffee in panic. Dallin lands and extends his arm towards the startled Bokma Galios, telling him to duck. He grabs onto Bokma and forces him to the ground just as arrows come flying through the window, rushing past their heads. Seeing this, Bokma is lost for words as Dallin sighs and says if he was a bit late, it would have been bad. When Bokma asks what's going on, Dallin stands up, says he'll explain later, and instructs him to hide under the bed. And he hurls his axe out of the window. The axe goes flying towards the other house and strikes a man on its rooftop. Dallin walks towards the window and tells Bokma not to come out until he returns. With a smirk, Dallin says he will hunt for some EXP, while Bokma, going under the bed, gives a puzzled look. Dallin then springs out of the window and lands on the roof of the other house. He sees that the axe has struck a person wearing a white mask. Sensing something, Dallin turns around and sees a few other people with the same masks on the roofs of different houses. He notes that the main military forces of the enemy are moving around and realizes they won't just watch idly. He grasps tightly onto his axe and believes there isn't much time until the enemy's big plan is executed. At that moment, a sharp spear comes flying towards Dallin, which he deflects away with the axe. He then sprints towards the hooded and masked people ahead of him. The masked people, alarmed, start throwing attacks at Dallin, which he dodges as he runs forward. He slashes one of them with his axe and charges at another. With a swing of his axe, Dallin beheads him. After killing the two, he notes that there are 3 more remaining as another spear comes flying at him. He easily deflects it away. At that very moment, Dallin hears someone addressing him, saying he must be the one who killed Derek. Dallin turns to the source of the noise and sees someone moving towards him. The new arrival, wearing a silver mask instead of white, says he wants to taste Dallin's blood. Dallin notices the silver mask and is alarmed to learn that it's an executive-ranked member coming for him. The man's name is Stray Lutterhafen, a low-class vampire assassin who deals with poison and memorization. Dallin claims that in the game it was very difficult to react to his attacks, and now he wonders what it will be like. Looking excited, Dallin realizes he can't do anything else but face Stray Lutterhafen himself. So he lunges at Lutterhafen, aiming to end it in one go. But seeing Lutterhafen calm, Dallin is alarmed. Suddenly, a number of arrows come flying towards Dallin from behind. He swiftly jumps back, deflecting the arrows with his axe. He thinks he might have been too hasty running in just like that. He recalls Lutterhafen had once defeated his character before. At that moment, a notification informs Dallin he has discovered an assassin's corpse. He looks behind Lutterhafen and sees a few of those in white and gold masks who just attacked him and thinks to finish them first. Lutterhafen suddenly fires attacks at Dallin, saying he will drink his blood. The others behind Lutterhafen also do the same, shooting crossbows at Dallin. Dallin stands in silence as the many attacks hurl towards him. He quickly leaps into the air, passing over the ones with crossbows. And he slams down his axe on the other attackers behind. He swings his axe and slashes them. After taking care of the snipers, his eyes fall on the ones with crossbows. He raises the axe and with force throws it, catching one of them in the face. And he clenches his fist and activates the Dahamon's armored combat skill. Like a flash, he punches his way through the remaining white-masked enemies effortlessly. The last remaining enemy, seeing Dallin's strength, asks what kind of monster he is. Dallin takes a long breath, stating only one is left, and he jumps at him, raising the axe above his head. But at that moment, some round black objects come hurtling towards Dallin from behind. As he swings his axe at the remaining enemy, An explosion occurs before him. Alarmed, he realizes it's a poison bomb. His reaction instantly changes to shock. Meanwhile, Lutterhafen, watching from afar, says a mere human can't endure the deadly poison. He withdraws 3 kunai and decides to get rid of Dallin. He walks forward, claiming he can withstand the deadly poison as a vampire, and asserts Dallin, being human, cannot. And surely, he notices a dark figure of someone lying sprawled, thinking it's Dallin. However, he is shocked when he notices the figure has a gold mask on. Suddenly, from behind, Dallin springs out, his axe raised. Lutterhafen is startled as he leaps back quickly, dodging the axe swung at him. He is bewildered seeing Dallin unaffected by the poison. He realizes that Dallin might not be human and, seeing the bloodlust in him, thinks Dallin is a monster. Dallin says that his eyes sting, puzzling Lutterhafen. He says this reminds him of when he did CBR training as a new soldier, further puzzling Lutterhafen with his talk. Lutterhafen shoots the kunai at Dallin, saying he doesn't understand what he is saying. He tells Dallin to hurry and die as the kunai fly at him. Dallin smirks, questioning Lutterhafen's repetitive attack patterns, and activates dragon blood regeneration. He digs his feet in and lunges at Lutterhafen, grabbing his neck, horrifying him. Dallin asks Lutterhafen if he has any last words. But Lutterhafen, shaken, asks Dallin how he is enduring the deadly poison, claiming no human can withstand it. Dallin, looking annoyed, tells Lutterhafen he is too loud as the system informs him he has killed his target. He lets go of Lutterhafen's limp body, relieved that he's only a low-level vampire, otherwise he might have escaped by transforming into a bat or shadow. The system again informs Dallin he has discovered the assassin who parts the night sky's corpse skill. Like usual, the system asks Lutterhafen if he wants to collect the corpse, and Dallin uses the corpse collection. He then receives the collected corpse's abilities, enhancing his strength and leap. Meanwhile, back at his house, Bokma Galios is still shaken by the fact that he was almost assassinated in broad daylight. He looks out of the broken window and tries to reassure himself. And he looks at the building ahead, wondering if it was all a dream. But he still decides to call his guards. Reaching for the door, he hopes Dallin is alive. Suddenly, Dallin comes crashing into the room behind Bokma. Horrified, Bokma looks around and nearly passes out in fear. Dallin tsks and says he needs to learn to control his strength. He walks towards shaken-up Bokma, who asks him what he is doing. Dallin notices foam coming from Bokma's mouth and asks if he was poisoned. At that moment, someone walks in, saying they heard the noise. It's Sienna, who asks Dallin if he caused the noise. Dallin, surprised, asks her what she is doing there. Sienna, who is holding a roll of parchment, says she has brought the info for Dallin he was looking for. Dallin, Bokma, and Sienna are seated around, in the middle of discussion. Bokma asks Sienna if she is the crow's nest's informant. Sienna affirms and introduces herself. Bokma asks Sienna if she planted someone in his emporium. She agrees, confirming it's how she knew Dallin's location. She then turns to Dallin and tells him she brought the info he was looking for. Holding a parchment, she says she found the organization to which the silver mask he gave her belongs to. The mask Sienna is referring to is the one Dallin recovered from the sewers and gave her to investigate. Dallin is looking forward to see if Sienna investigated it properly and asks her who they are. Sienna explains that they are heretics who serve an evil god and call themselves the Apostles of Retrograde. She slams a book on the table and claims there's one more thing. Bokma, seeing the book, asks if it's the ledger, and Sienna says it's the ledger of the Telia shop. Sienna reveals she found something in the ledger. The Telia shop owner is an executive of the Apostles of Retrograde. She explains that over the last few days, the shop has been purchasing a vast quantity of weapons, medicine, and metal. She points towards the map and says the bought goods are stored there, which is a storage facility of the Telia shop. Dallin claims he knows the storage facility as well. Sienna reports sightings of masked heretics in the area, along with kidnapped craftsmen, merchants, thugs, and vagrants. Dallin suspects they're transforming thugs and vagrants into demi-monsters using merchants' funds and craftsmen's labor to create weapons. And connecting the dots, he is sure a war will start soon. Dallin asks Sienna if she has any news from the Bronze Guards, asserting she is close with the Silent Company commander. Sienna says she has told the commander about it for now and he said he would cooperate. She adds that attacking the shop without evidence and beyond the commander's patrol area would be challenging, especially for a storage facility. Dallin says that's not a problem. With a smirk, he suggests they create a justification for the guards to intervene. It's nighttime and a guard patrolling and watching over a large house shivers with cold, claiming the winter is really cold. The other guard, in a white mask, shows disapproval for being ordered to do things that could have been made thugs to do. He is not happy for being made to guard a simple building. The guard with a sword tells the complaining guard to be quiet, warning he will get killed if he is heard saying such things. He points out that the apostles have been running around busy since morning and says he is sure the grand plan will start soon. Suddenly, the guard in a golden mask drops down on his face, startling the guard with the sword. He gives a scared look as he senses someone standing behind him, stammering. When he turns around, he sees Dallin towering above him, staring back. He curses as Dallin questions him about the ones in white and golden masks. With a smirk, Dallin says he killed them all. Now really terrified, the guard opens his mouth to speak but Dallin punches him hard, sending him flying backwards. Dallin notes that including those two he just defeated, there are a total of 30 people. He acknowledges the enemy did place a lot of guards all over, including the streets to the roofs. He then jumps down from the roof thinking there's no one left to impede his attack now. He swiftly lands down on the ground. He scans the area, noticing no beggars or addicts in the back alleys, suspecting they've been abducted and transformed into demi-monsters. He also thinks the enemy will not move in secret as they have accelerated their grand plan. He recalls that he received the Bronze Guard's promise to assist them through Sienna. He reveals his simple plan to bypass the guards, enter the storage facility, confront the enemies, and start a fire. After the fire is set, chaos will ensue, and the guards stationed in the area will suppress the fire and discover the heretic's evidence. It's a perfect plan. But Dallin is being bothered by one thing. He looks at the massive building and notes it has 5 floors. And he also believes the Telia shop owner must be inside. He ponders if the shop owner will stay inside after breaching the first floor or prepare for a final showdown upon escaping. And smirking, he admits he doesn't know. But he knows whether it's heretics or agents of the devil, there's always preparation needed to fight them and stomp them out properly. He takes a deep breath and reveals he has chosen another method as losing the owner would be bad. He applies full force into his legs and propels himself forward, sprinting with great speed. He digs his feet into the ground and activates the leap skill. With great force, he then propels himself off the ground, flying straight upwards the building. He aims towards a window on the top floor, his fist raised as he pulls back a punch. And with a huge crash, he leaps inside the window. As he lands in, he claims it's been a while, looking around the huge room. Suddenly, multiple growls fill the air as Dallin notices the demi-monsters being held captive in the prison. Seeing the monsters, he is reminded of the unpleasant memory of the other demi-monster he encountered before. Before Dallin's eyes, a man emerges from a coffin who says he has witnessed the presence of God with his great apostles. He walks out and claims it's his first time suspecting whether he is seeing things with his own eyes. He brings out the silver mask and asks Dallin if he wrote a spell. He is Urchil's Philenum, the Telia shop owner. Dallin, gripping his axe, admits he's no expert on spells, then points the axe towards Urchil's and suggests he see an eye doctor if his eyes hurt, addressing him as rich shop owner.